Good afternoon. Hello there, friends, family, relatives, brethren. I just thought I could make a short video of to highlight some of the things that are in my book um, that I believe somebody needs to hear and that somebody needs to get a hold of in order for God to change their life. I want to touch a little bit about the life of Leah because I know the book is watch out for Laban, but in Laban's life there is Leah. In fact, Laban contributes to who Leah is, and I want to touch on Leah because I know that there are a lot of Leahs out there. There are a lot of my sisters who are going through deep agony, who are going through deep pain. A lot of them have low self-esteem. A lot of them are struggling to manage uh, their self-esteem, their self-worth, their value. A lot of them are struggling to, you know, to have a high regard of themselves because of their background. Initially, it could just be the looks. If we check what the scriptures say, the scriptures say that Leah had tender eyes, and I've written in the book about Leah that she had tender eyes, and that made her unattractive, so to say, because the Bible describes how beautiful his sister was, and his sister is Rachel, and Rachel is the one that Jacob saw, and I'm sure he was like, "Wow, what a chick!" But he overlooked Leah. So I'm sure it wasn't the first time that Leah was overlooked, and so many times we overlooked because of how we look, because of what we don't have, and as a woman, sometimes there's pressure to want what others have. And I believe that Leah is one of those. And so I just want to read a few notes that I've written, that I've just added on to what I've written in the book. One of the things that I've written is that Leah represents vulnerable women who get taken advantage of. She's so vulnerable. She's desperate to be accepted. She's desperate to be loved. She's desperate to be embraced, that she then begins to be taken advantage of by people who sort of like hold an advantage over her. Is it a person in authority like her father, who then decides he's going to facilitate for her to be given in the hands of a man who doesn't love her? Because Leah is so vulnerable. She's broken. She's been laughed at. When I was growing up, I think I was in primary school, perhaps grade 4, grade 5. One of my cousins used to tease me and call me Humpty Dumpty. And I can tell you that for a very long time, it hurt me. It stayed with me. That I never considered myself to be beautiful. I never considered myself to be attractive. So what that does is you then become desperate to want to be accepted, to be loved, to be approved of, such that if anyone, any Tom, Dick, and Harry shows up and they just say to you, Melody, you're beautiful, you can jump and run with them, or you doubt them. But I want to tell you that for a long time, I doubted myself. For a long time, I thought I was nothing to look at. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is I can see that Leah may have gone through perhaps days or stages of being mocked, of being laughed at, of being overlooked. And she gets to a place where now she's desperate, such that when Jacob comes on the scene and Jacob is attractive and Jacob loves his sister, Leah can't deal with the fact that her sister has been chosen over her. And she's so desperate to be in a relationship with an attractive young man who actually shows love, because the Bible talks about how deeply Jacob loved Rachel. Leah must have observed Jacob serving her father, working so hard to obtain Rachel, that in her heart she desired the same thing. Unfortunately, she began to desire her sister's man. And that's when things go wrong there, because though Jacob had Leah forced on him, the Bible states that Jacob didn't love Leah. And I want to tell my sisters out there that there is no amount of throwing yourself at someone that can make a person love you if they didn't. You are too valuable, you're too precious, you're too important. Don't let your cousin call you Humpty Dumpty such that it causes you to be desperate for attention, to want somebody who doesn't want you. Leah represents women who want and go after what other women have because she becomes covetous. She becomes covetous because she's wondering why she isn't approached, why she can't have what others have. So she becomes covetous. And why did I use the word covetous? I use the word covetous because in Genesis 30, Leah and Rachel have a conversation where Leah literally buys Jacob's services. Actually, Rachel offers her to buy Jacob's sexual services for that night. And I want to read a little bit of what I wrote in my book. I'm just going to read it quickly. There's an account in Genesis 30, verse 14 to 16, where the two women trade mandrakes so that Jacob can go and have sex with Leah. Can you imagine paying to have sex with your husband? Poor Jacob. Because what kind of a husband, what kind of a man, what was he going through to have women trade him for sex? Now, the women were entering into deals to have him for a night. It seems Rachel had more right and access to Jacob, hence her telling Leah she could have Jacob that night if she gave her the mandrakes. Clearly, Leah was unloved. Can you imagine Leah's sister saying, okay, if you give me this, I'll let Jacob sleep with you. But the surprising thing is that Leah, in her response to Rachel's offer, says to Rachel, wasn't it enough that you took away my husband? And I'm asking, when did Jacob ever become Leah's husband more than he was Rachel's husband? Because Jacob never chose Leah. But Leah is so entitled as a firstborn. She has the firstborn entitlement mentality that because I'm the first, I deserve to be married first. I deserve to have the first. But God doesn't work like that. God is not intimidated by our tradition. He is not forced to act because of our entitlement mentalities or the things that we practice as humans. God favors whomsoever he chooses to favor. And at this moment, he chose to favor Rachel with Jacob. And so it wasn't Leah's call. But you find that Leah, because she feels entitled, then she says to Rachel, wasn't it enough that you took my husband? You took away my husband. And I got puzzled. But then I realized as I studied this, that Leah was a damaged woman. Because if Jacob was truly a husband, she would not be trading anything in order to have him for a night. She wouldn't. Leah's soul is broken. Leah's self-esteem is so low. Leah is so desperate to be Mrs. Somebody that she went ahead and agreed with her father to be given to a man who didn't have any hearts for her, who looked at her for 7 good years. When Jacob was working for Rachel, 7 good years, he saw Leah every single day, and Jacob never expressed to Leah that he wanted her. How do I know? I know because the very first night that Jacob slept with Leah, he woke up angry in the morning when he discovered it wasn't Rachel. That means Jacob never had his eyes on Leah. I'm saying to you, wherever you are this afternoon, please don't throw yourself in the arms of a man who doesn't love you. I'm talking to my sisters. I can tell you right now, there are so many women who cry day and night in their homes because they were thrown into the arms of men who didn't love them, or they, out of desperation, threw themselves in the arms of men who didn't love them. And they have lived with sorrow all their lives. Some of them are on high blood pressure tablets. Leah had she had 6 sons. If I add 2 who are Zilpah's sons, she had 8 sons, and all of them she was naming them name after name, trying to attract Jacob to her, or trying to reverse a situation with Jacob using children. Listen, there is no amount of children that you can have that can cause a man who doesn't love you to love you. There is no amount of sex that you can have with a man who doesn't love you that can cause him to love you, because Jacob did not change his stance where Leah is concerned for years. Yes. How many years do you think it took for Leah to have 6 children or 8 sons? If it was a child, that's 8 years or 6 years. If it was 2 years in between, that's 12 years. Can you imagine 12 years of laboring to be loved? I'm trying to show you the effects of having a Laban in your life. If Laban is your dad, this is what can happen to you. You can have a marriage from hell. You can have sons whom you don't rejoice over. Instead of Leah being happy that God has given you sons, she was busy using these sons to want to kind of like manipulate Jacob to perform a certain way where she's concerned. Is it loving? Is it being affectionate? You cannot use children as pawns to be loved by a man. I'm talking to you, my sisters. You cannot fall pregnant to get a man to marry you. And you shouldn't listen to people who say it's time, and then you throw yourself in the hands of any man that's available that passes by you, whom you're not sure of, who hasn't shown you enough love and enough commitment. I'm talking to you this afternoon because Rachel and Leah went through hell in their relationship, but most importantly, Leah went through so much hell that even her own sons began to have problems with Rachel's children when Rachel's children were finally born. That's hell for the mother and hell for the children and hell for the father. Please, I'm asking you by the mercies of the Lord that you work hard at getting the identity that God has given you. I've stated how I rely on John chapter 1, verse 12 and 13. If you just know that you are born of God, you are going to be able to stand in a different position and view yourself differently and begin to accept the beauty that you have, whether it's outside or inside. Tender eyes are nothing if you're beautiful inside, but if you have tender eyes and then you're not beautiful inside, you're going to throw yourself in the hands of Jacob and you're going to go through hell. So these are the things I also wrote, just to run quickly because I wanted to just make this short. I said that Leah she represents men who do the same things as Leah did, who are vulnerable and they get taken advantage of. They marry a pretty fool. They marry a pretty girl whom they can see is not so committed to them, but they just want us. They want to walk around with her. She's so pretty. She's like an ornament. She's like something to display. But you know your heart is not with you. You know your heart is not locked in with yours. And then you go through hell once you have taken that fool in your house, or that Jezebel in your house. He begins to influence you against God or against the purpose of your life. So Leah represents obviously people who have an entitlement mentality, who claim things that belong to others because they think they deserve them more than the other person. Leah represents jealous sisters, whether biological or in the kingdom. There are sisters in the church who know that a brother is in a relationship with so and so, but they want. That's the kind of person that Leah is. She doesn't care that this brother is chosen so and so. She also wants a piece of that brother. So I want you to know that Laban throws around people who are like Leah. People with low self-esteem, people who don't regard themselves to be important. I want you to know this afternoon as I close that you are very, very important, that you are precious to God, that you matter to God, that God has a purpose for you, that you would rather wait for a man who loves you than to throw yourself in the hands of a man who doesn't love you because you want to compete with your sister. I pray that this little message that I've shared will awaken some anger inside of you so that you refuse to settle for less, refuse to settle for hell, and look for your own heaven. Be blessed. And please buy the book because there's a lot of these things in it. Bless you.